Okay, welcome everyone. I'm Richard Herskowitz, the artistic director of the Ashland Independent Film Festival, and I'm very pleased that we have here the director of the film you just saw, Daniel Freeman. Hi, Daniel.
Hey, how's it going?
And also the lead actor and co-writer and co-music composer of the film, Drew Connick. Welcome, Drew.
Hi, everyone.
Well, what a knockout your film is. I know you guys, obviously the backstory of making this project is fascinating. So just maybe take us back to how you guys met and began developing films, because I understand that I saw a short film you made together called Still Moves that got a lot of attention before this, that seems to be a run-up to the making of this movie.
Go ahead.
Cool. I mean, so yeah, Drew and I met and we became fast friends. You know, we had a nice connection socially and creatively, and we met doing, coincidentally at a film festival. We were production assistants where we drove trucks and just loaded furniture in and out of, screenings and after screening parties and all that stuff. And we worked together for 4 weeks. And, when you do jobs like that with people, you get close because you're working together, you build camaraderie. And then during that, the downtime of all that, I just kind of like realized that Drew was very performative and funny and open and vulnerable, and he would do cool impressions. And I was like, wow, this guy's like got a good energy and he's a special person. And then I, asked him if he wanted to be in this short film that I've been wanting to make, and he said yes. And then from then we haven't really looked back, and we've just been making, fun films together and getting to know each other more, and like putting ourselves in like strange situations together. And yeah, then it's resulted in 2 films and working on a new one. And it just feels like things are going well. And I'm really glad to have a friend in Drew Connick.
Drew, you want to add anything to that?
Well, I mean, I don't know if it's relevant, but it was Sundance where we met. So it was interesting to be, kind of amongst like really, highly regarded cinema, and to just have, this very, we were just peons. We were earning, they paid us nothing, like $12.50 an hour. It's horrible conditions. and yeah, we're just,
festivals. Okay.
Yeah, right. And it was just funny that, like, just this tiny little seed of connection. We both just had the same sense of humor, and that tiny thing, if you just pour water on it, you can a few years later, we're here and going doing like, a lot of Q&As for film festivals with our own film. So
tell me about like settling into this kind of domain between fiction and documentary, because Still Moves was the same way. How did you land on that, and why did that appeal to both of you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there was just like a very pragmatic, realistic embrace of like who we were and where we were in our lives and what my skill set was and what our sensibilities were. And I just didn't want to have a crew. Like, I just wanted it to be super intimate, and I wanted to just let people be themselves and stuff. And, I had a lot of learning and figuring it out on the go. And I felt more comfortable doing that, in private, and like not making a fool out of myself and like directing people and stuff. And it was just super fun. It's fun to kind of blur the lines of reality and fiction. And it's a cool way, I think, to live life and to make interesting things. And, I think one of the terms that I've maybe used is like, we wanted to embrace our flaws and not hide them, and like, almost accentuate them and turn them into charms, and embrace them and be honest with people about who we were and what chapter of life we were in. So hybrid has just been a really fun, organic thing that's really worked for us. And once you find something that works, it's cool to keep going down that road, I think. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And Drew, do you also perform as an actor in more traditional films? Is that something that interests you, or is this
yeah,
really where you specialize? Yeah.
No, I I have mainly worked in just traditional like narrative films,
Mhm.
and have lived in LA for way too long, pursuing that kind of stuff. And yeah, I really have to give credit to Daniel for the you know the journey into the hybrid filmmaking, and it was really doing still moves. And we spent a few days together. He spent like $1,200
Mhm.
on this little short film, and he got into 7 film festivals or something crazy. So seeing that we had like a bit of success, and that it was really just like a really enjoyable experience, very private, very intimate, and people really responded to it. I think that's ultimately what pushed us to just try to do something bigger. So yeah, really just credit to Daniel
Yeah.
for just having that first idea, and then from there we really resonated with one another. So
Yeah. Well, as I was saying to Daniel before this interview started, that think this is just a great tradition in independent feature filmmaking. Sometimes it gets called neo-realist. It comes out of neo-realism, which mixed non-actors with professional actors and shot on location, and again blended documentary and fiction. And in a way, it's an interesting. In the Northwest, Kelly Reichardt, who also films in Oregon, works in this mode. And also in some ways recently, the film Nomadland, I think operates in this terrain. And again, I love this tradition. It's kind of interesting how this is a Northwest film, and that, Daniel, you are from Oregon. You went to the University of Oregon, you grew up here, and you shot much of this in the Northwest. Can you say something about that context?
Yeah, I am very curious about maybe the correlations and the sensibilities of Northwest filmmaking and embracing those landscapes or being from there. And as a little kid or as a teenager and whatnot, I liked Gus Van Sant movies and Kelly Reichardt movies, and like I just kept it moving from there. Like I thought it was really cool that they filmed them in Oregon, and I really liked that. I think I liked that things weren't, from the cultural epicenters where they typically are. Like I have nothing against big cities, but like I'm drawn to stories in the forest or stories along the I-5, and that's just the way it is, and I accept that. And I mean, like we really did embrace the West Coast. Me and Drew are like West Coast kids, and that's like what our deal is. And we wanted to flash that. And I think a big part of our friendship is like driving around in random parts of the West Coast, on different freeways and in the desert and by the ocean and in the forest. And like, I don't know, it just feels like who we are, and like where I've been inspired cinematically since I was a baby. So I just really wanted to embrace it and like ride with it. And like, what's like a redwood tree is beautiful by itself. You can put that in a movie and you got a good start, so yeah.
Well, and another thing I admire so much about the film, I mean, it is truly independent. I mean, there's such a small crew clearly involved, and you're all performing multiple roles. Daniel, you're director, producer, writer, cinematographer, music, sound, and even some of the performers in the film, many of the ones playing themselves, have other roles, like involved in doing the music or the art direction. You want to elaborate on that a bit? Just just having such a small crew and making this with such a tight-knit group.
Yeah. I just like, as much as I mean, there's a side of me that's really motivated by like, like silly things. Like I like to call bluffs and like prove people wrong. And like, like I try to look at it in a positive way. But one of my earliest memories in watching films as a kid is like seeing the scroll of end credits and like not even understanding how that many people worked on the movie I just saw, and like feeling like maybe that was a little silly even when I was a kid. And I just like wanted to throw myself in the deep end, and like I knew that maybe we would sacrifice a little bit of sound quality or a little bit of camera shake here or there, but I just was down with it, and I knew what we were capable of, and I was like invested in making a case study that like told people you could make a film for less than $10,000, and like people can't say anything differently to me for the rest of my life because we made Teddy out of Tune. You know, it's like, and I want to encourage people to, you know, make scrappy independent stories and to learn all these different parts of production and to like throw yourself into it. And you know, Drew can probably talk about like how it felt to do it in like an independent route, you know, and like the trade-off and like, you know, the meaning you get from it. But it just felt like who I was and like who we were, and I just embraced it. And like I wasn't really feeling left out of the Hollywood thing or anything. I just wanted to make a movie, you know.
Yeah. Do you want to say anything about the vibe of the production with
yeah. Well, it's interesting just to go back to Sundance a little bit. You know, it's funny that is the backdrop of our having met, and then Teddy Out of Tune being so scrappy and resourceful. And yeah, there's some poetic way that I'm too inarticulate to tie it all together. But, you know, like being from the Pacific Northwest and not doing things the way that Hollywood does them or Los Angeles does them is like Daniel's spirit very much. And I've been on some really awful independent movies that just wanted to do things by the book in the Hollywood way, but they didn't have the kind of spirit or soul or just that like, you know, that artistic impulse that is really strong in Daniel. So it was, you know, at times it was really odd, and I felt really like we were just, you know, on an island together alone. But it quickly became apparent that being on an island with one person who is a poet is much better than being in the middle of Hollywood with a bunch of robots. So maybe that's a good way of saying it.
Yeah. So I'm just curious with the performers who play themselves in the movie, how you developed the scenes with them. How much of it was either autobiographical about the person? You know, maybe, I don't know, I'm trying to think of some of the names of the other actors. Let's just say Aaron or Melissa, right, in the film. Can you give me an example, like just how you developed a particular relationship, a scene based in their lives?
You know, it's a spectrum, and even every line of dialogue or every moment is like its own little version of truth and fiction. Like some things are just 100% real, or some things are staged, or, you know, each character is a little different. You know, Aaron, who is an actor, and they have, you know, worked with Drew, learning acting at school and stuff, and they act in a traditional way as well on stage and in TV shows. But, you know, they had a connection with us about mental illness, and they played a version of themselves. And it was very truthful when they're talking about their past. They're talking about their past, but there is some fibbing in that they don't live in that cabin. You know, that's not their cabin. But Melissa is someone that we had never met before, and she just came over and, you know, saw a piano in the back of a truck and asked if she could play on it, and then she became a part of our story. You know, and she also had a lot to say that was really relevant, you know, and pushed our film and our themes along. And so there's a little bit of both of like, we kind of had a roadmap, and we would maybe sometimes put people on the road that we could interact with and have really natural things with, like Aaron, but we also met people that we weren't planning, you know. So it's an openness, and it's a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And you know, like Drew said, it can be a little odd, you know, feeling like you're kind of with these people and it's blurry, but I tried to be open with people. We would tell people, obviously, that Drew was Drew and Teddy was Teddy, but it was, you know, it was just a vibe, I guess. Like, and we just went with it, you know, and like at a certain point you can have existential things like, you know, drag you back while you're doing it, or you can just accept the journey you're on and like figure it out in the editing room. And that's what we did. Like, and you know, I really appreciate our friends, you know, and our new friends and people that rode with us and were comfortable with us working like that, because it's scary, you know, to be vulnerable and not know what's going to end up on screen, or to not necessarily even understand what's happening in the moment. So really appreciate that. And
so yeah. If I got it right, you were in production for about 3 weeks, is that right? Or was it, yeah. And so you were kind of developing things as they went along. There wasn't so much pre-planning involved, just a kind of a general outline or a general map.
Yeah, I would like to hear Mr. Connick's like interpretation of, you know, what our production was like. We had days where we knew what we were doing, and we had days where we were like a boat lost in the ocean. You know what I mean? Like we weren't always oriented, you know, and we weren't always on the same page. But yeah, I'm sure Drew can talk about like that sort of stuff.
Yeah, one of the two instances come to mind, one of which is meeting Melissa. So I mean, the entirety of the production consisted of you know, driving to the border of Arizona and Mexico, and then we started in Nogales, and we drove all the way up to the border of Canada. So that's essentially what took us 3 weeks. And in the very middle, we met Melissa, who we didn't know at all, and obviously was such a character and brought so much energy to the story that it kind of changed our entire conception of what we were making. Wow. Right in the middle of the journey, because we knew that footage was going to be gold, and that we had to fit it into the story somehow. The other instance that came to mind is we wanted to put a scene in of Teddy trying to sell things at a pawn shop. And we had this pawn shop in mind in Phoenix. And when we showed up, there was these two individuals very intoxicated on some sort of amphetamine, and they were not excited about us having a camera near them. And it quickly felt dangerous. And that scene was cut out in the matter of, you know, 5 minutes. We made the decision that no, we're not going to shoot that scene anymore. So it was just like, you know, juggling, you know, whatever you could find, and you'd lose one ball and then another one would appear, and, you know, just.
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, I can remember, like, you know, because Drew's truck was, you know, the truck that we drove, you know, like that's what it was. It was 100 degrees every day, no air conditioning. And like, it was a grind. But I remember, you know, like looking out the window while we're driving and being like, looking for spots to film, you know, it was very active. Like it was like, and I like that. Like, that's how I like to make movies, is like being hungry for images and like looking around and like being like a little hawk and stuff like that. And sometimes that's like a cooler mindset to be in, or a more creative mindset than to like know exactly where you're going to do everything, you know? So just kind of like being like hungry for spots and images, and like, you know, kind of like feeling out energies and like sniffing it out, I guess, like a dog.
I want to hear about the home movies. At what point did that occur to you? First of all, how did you choose those, or how did you find those? Are they yours, Drew?
They are, yeah. My father used to take all these videos, and then of course, you know, as fathers do, hoards things away, never to see them again. So I found this box of these old home videos. And we were having trouble digitizing them, but we found a place in LA that did them. But it was too expensive to do them all. So we kind of just like picked and choose. And we happened to upon one where my mom was pregnant with me. So there's an image of her, you know, rubbing her stomach, and that's really me inside of her stomach. Which was really special. And then the one of the baby is actually, we couldn't find one of me as a baby. So we used my brother as a baby. He can still sue us if he wants, but I think, yeah, we used his image against his will.
So the use of those, was that a decision made in post-production while editing, or was that something that you hit on earlier?
I don't remember. Do you remember, Daniel?
You know, so I remember that it was like an ideal thing to pepper into the edit, you know, but we didn't really stress about having it beforehand. It was one of the last things, you know, that we procured. But I also knew that, you know, we were presenting this documentary style, and one of my goals, you know, was that people thought it was real, you know, when they watched it, you know, not in like a deceptive way, but I just wanted to achieve that. And I thought that, like, if you bring in archival, like, that really makes it hard to not believe, you know what I mean? It's like, you have the home videos, and like, that's such a customary element of documentary filmmaking, is to show the past while, you know, what, instead of, I don't know. And Yeah, you know, there is stuff of little infant baby Drew, you know,
Oh yeah.
in the movie, you know, sleeping and stuff. And I just think it's really powerful to, you know, to see the spectrum of Drew's life, you know, like from one cut to the next. You know, you see baby Drew, and then you see, you know,
And you
baby
all,
man Drew.
and you also see from his perspective with that GoPro. Uh, how did that feel? Had you done that before, Drew?
Never. No. We had help from one of my friends here in LA, who is yeah, he had a GoPro, and he just offered it up last minute to us. And I think somewhere along like once we got back to California from being at the border of Arizona, I started feeling comfortable sort of messing around with it.
Mm-hmm.
And especially when we started driving through the redwoods, I just like couldn't not be filming the whole time, because I started to develop that same kind of thirst that Daniel was talking about, the hunger for images. And yeah, I was like, okay, I'm just going to be, I'm just going to, shoot as much as I can, because everything we're seeing is so beautiful.
Yeah.
And it gave Drew some control too. And I appreciated it as a filmmaker, you know, who was exhausting my energy, you know, that like images were being captured without me having to do anything. And I was like, that's at that point in the production, that was really nice. You know what I mean? And it was also like gave this sort of diary element and control to the Teddy character, you know, that I think is really special. And it allowed it some breathing room and some pace. And obviously the underwater, you know, it allowed us to go places that we couldn't with other cameras. And also, you know, it just was really helpful, you know, to have that GoPro, and I thought it was nice. And I think one thing in our film too is you kind of notice that the director or the filmmaker never says anything or talks or does anything. And like, I kind of felt like with the GoPro stuff being heavy in the edit, it kind of felt like Teddy was the filmmaker, or it was Teddy who was really directing, and he had the voice, you know, and the filmmaker showed restraint. So I think that all kind of contributed, the GoPro stuff. And I really do thank your friend Ryan for giving the GoPro. It was a really important part of our film. Yeah.
It really is. And all just those elements woven together, the home movies, the GoPro, and your shooting, just the final edit is beautiful. So congratulations on what you made. We had to decide where to put it, in the narrative feature section or the documentary feature section. It could have gone in either place. We chose to put it in narrative feature. I think we're going to have to create a hybrid section in the future, but we'll see what happens. It's already gotten a great response from our local reviewers, and I'm sure audience members are going to spread the word about your amazing film. Thank you, Drew, and thank you, Daniel, for being a part of our festival this year.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much. And, you know, thanks to the staff at Ashland for being so adaptive with the virtual and embracing our scrappy little project. And, you know, peace to all my friends in Oregon, you know, I really appreciate it.
Thanks.